Hello, Mount Worship. Sergeant Charles Perkins of the Mount Worship Fire Protection District. Today I'm here to bring you a video in our series about the history of our department, kind of the how we came to be and why we came to be. So in order to discuss that, we first have to look a little bit at our town and some of the structures that were in our town prior to us becoming a fire service. So in the early part of the 20th century, there were two structures that stood in our town that I want to spotlight today. One of them stood on the corner of Bardstown Road and Highway 44. The lot now holds the First Harrison Bank. This structure was known as Maccabee Hall. And Maccabees were a theater group out of New England that would establish theaters throughout the region and East Coast, and different performers would travel these regions and put on performances. A lot of them that came here would go into Louisville and would perform at the TV stations on Saturday night programming. And during their downtime or their off days, they would come out to us and they would put on performances here. Some very well-known stars attended Mount Washington and performed in our theater. This theater had a restaurant on the first floor and a meeting hall on the rear. On the second floor, it actually had the theater, and the third floor was where all the props and sets were stored. The second structure I want to talk about is the original Methodist Church. Now, it's set behind Maccabee Hall, about where Highway 44 and Snap Street meet, going back to about where the Donut King is now. So it's just right off the back door of Maccabee Hall. So those two structures are pretty important to our story today. Now, the Methodist Church were no longer using the original church. They had already built a new church on Bardstown Road on the lot that is now home to the library. So another occupant had moved into the original church and was using it as kind of a general store. Now, on the night of November 18th, a fire broke out somewhere inside Maccabee Hall. It's not known what started the fire, but with the winds that were raging that night, the flames were just pushed through the structure and quickly consumed Maccabee Hall. The embers that were being blown out of the structure as it burned also caught that Methodist church on fire, and both structures were just completely destroyed by the fire. Now, the townspeople didn't have any fire protection, so the only option they had was to grab buckets or whatever they had and form a bucket brigade to try to save the other structures in town, or if they could put the fire out, they would, but probably not going to happen. The only fire department that was available to respond was J-Town Fire Department. And as you can imagine, in 1940, they didn't have modern fire trucks, so they didn't move as fast as some do today. So getting here took a few minutes. Plus there was, they were on back roads. So with the help of J-Town Fire Department and the Bucket Brigade and the citizens, the town was saved. The damage was confined to mostly those two structures, and this actually created the need and the want for a fire department in our town. So the community came together and decided that we needed a fire department, and they pulled money together and they raised enough money that they were able to purchase a 1941 Chevy pickup truck with a pump mounted to the front bumper. Now, this truck served as the only fire truck in our community until 1961. And the fire department still owns this fire truck. It's still in our possession. It needs a little love and TLC, but we still get it out occasionally and use it for parades or funerals. But in 1942, the department officially was acknowledged and became the Mount Washington Volunteer Fire Department. It wasn't until 1952 when Roy Tinsley allowed the department to build its first two-bay firehouse on Porter Street, which is just south of Highway 44 off of Bardstown Road. The labor and much of the material was donated, and the structure still stands today, but it's owned by a private citizen. So during this time, the funding for the fire department was all done through fundraisers, tractor pulls, bake sales, so forth. It wasn't until the 1970s the department applied to the state and officially became the Mount Washington Fire Protection District. So this made us a taxing district, and for the first time it allowed for us to have a budget and the ability to develop a long-term plan to upgrade fire protection for the community. Around this time, the department purchased property located on Highway 31E, Bardstown Road, at Jean Street, and they relocated Station 1 to this new site. The new firehouse was a small structure that had a couple of bays and a meeting room in it, but it served well for the first 25 years that we were a fire protection district. In July of 1982, the department built our Station 2. This station was built on Dawson Hill Road, right off of Kings Church Road, behind Country Pantry in a gravel lot. And it was constructed to help upgrade the fire protection in the eastern part of the district. This structure still stands today, but is no longer owned by the department. It is owned by a private citizen. In April 1987, Station 3 was built on Sunview Drive at Highway 44 to improve fire protection in the western part of our district. This station is still in service today. In 1998, a new Station 2 was built across from the existing Station 2 on Kings Church Road to better serve the firefighters and the community. On November 15th, 1993, a horrible accident occurred on Highway 44 at Sunview Drive, in front of our Station 3. Captain Gary Armstrong rear-ended the fire truck that was leaving Station 3. Both were making a response to a run at the KOA campground on Highway 44. Captain Armstrong's truck struck the rear of the fire truck, which had Bradley Allgood riding on the rear tailboard of it. Both men died on scene as a result of the crash. A memorial still stands in Highland Memorial Cemetery near Bardstown Road and Landis Lane. By the early 90s, the fire service had started to outgrow Station 1. The building had started to deteriorate, and it was common to have critters sharing the firefighters' boots and rain all over the floor of the bays. On November 11th, 1995, the Board of Directors constructed a new Station 1, which stands in front of the original location and is still in service as our Station 1 today. In 2002, the Board of Directors voted to hire the department's first full-time employee with Chief Michael Dooley. In 2005, an annex building was constructed behind Station 1 as the department prepared for its next chapter. The administrative staff was moved from Station 1 to the new annex. In 2006, the Board of Directors hired our first full-time training officer with Major Wayne Hodge, first full-time administrative assistant with Joyce Scroggum, and the first full-time staff of firefighters. 12 firefighters would staff 3 shifts, allowing for 24-hour coverage. They would work 24 hours on and 48 hours off, with 4 on each shift. This turned our department into a combination department with a mix of paid firefighters and volunteer firefighters. This would allow the paid staff to be able to respond within 2 minutes of a call for service, which provides a much faster service for the public. In 2008, the Board of Directors hired 1 additional employee per shift, allowing for full coverage when somebody took off. This gave us 5 personnel per shift, with a minimum of 4 on shift at any time. So it helped with overtime, and it helped with personnel being able to take time off. In 2010, a connector from the main Station 1 to the annex was built. This was to add more office space and to allow for a larger training room. In 2011, property was purchased on Highway 44 near Armstrong Lane to be the future Station 4 location. The property was turned into a training facility as the house on the property was no longer suitable to live in, but it was perfect for training. With the growth of the area and active volunteers in the Station 4 area, it was decided to turn an existing pole barn on the back of the property into a functioning firehouse. The plan for this location is to have a modern firehouse sometime hopefully within the next few years. In July 2021, we took another great step forward. We branched out with an EMS service. It had become more and more evident that medical care was needed for our area and was part of the future of the fire service. This service is now providing 2 ambulances full-time, staffed with a paramedic and a EMT or an advanced EMT that will deliver advanced life support care to the community around the clock. So what does the future hold for Mount Washington Fire Protection District? Well, we are expecting to take delivery of 2 new fire engines sometime within 2024-2025 to replace engines that have been in service since the 1990s. Possibly add another firefighter each shift, and maybe we can split into 2 staffed companies of 3. Hire more EMS providers to staff a 3rd ambulance. There's already a need in our service for that. A new Station 4 to house the new fire companies and the ambulance. Our department's future hasn't been written yet, but with the growth of the community, there's only one option for us, and that is to continue to try to grow and keep up with the community. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to keep pushing, keep growing, and try to provide you with the best possible service that we can provide to our community. So I want to thank you for your time and attention. Hopefully this video was informative and educational and gave you some insight into where your tax dollars go. So we want to build this video series up, so we're looking for your comments. So please go below and drop a comment on us. Let us know what you think of what we're doing. Let us know what you would like to learn about. Give us a like and a thumbs up. If you're on YouTube and you see the subscribe button on the bottom, click on that so we know what kind of audience we have out there. Also, there's a bell button. If you click on that bell, it will notify you whenever we post new content. So again, thank you from the Mount Washington Fire Protection District.